This is the lockpicking IBM Museum, and what I have for you today is an IBM Industrial 7546 that was locked. I simply used dental tools and locks from an AST computer to wedge this over to the unlocked position. Let me go through and darken it in a little bit. This lock was scuffed up when I received it, and it may make it more visible to see the position now, or it may go through and obscure just about everything. But there are four pins in this lock, and I'll go through and I've just basically slid the cover over a little bit. Let me get in front of the camera. And I've just slid this case a little bit forward to make sure that it was unlocked, because and I went through and I pulled the back I/O bracket off of it, but I have not been in this case actually at all yet. And so let me see if I can go through and get it down on the bench. Take the sky cam of my intro out of the way. And I did go through and I want to really look at the aspect. Let's rotate this around of the back of the system. And I just went through and I had pulled this bracket down. I want to look at the circuit board of it a little bit closer as I go through and work with things. But I did just barely slide this cover forward just to make sure that it was unlocked. And I'll complete that. I have not been inside this unit. Give myself the room here to be able to take the cover off. And to look things over. So that's an interesting case modification. I'm going to go through. Later on, I can probably pull that I/O connection off. And so just as I thought, and we'll kind of, we'll see what I can do to look at this. Here's the SCSI cable. And for all that's interesting. They've got the hard drive down here in this lower bay. They don't have it. This is the position that would be, that the hard drive would normally be in. And going through, and just as I thought, yeah, this is based on an 8557 planar, which has the 386 SLC 20 CPU. And let me see if I can, I'll go through and I'll pause and see if I can get the camera in a little bit better of position. So I did go through and get the case turned around and removed and rerouted some of the cables here. In particular, that big thick I/O connector on the back. We'll take a closer look at the breakout panel here in just a moment. And inside, I mean, and these cables they had clips on them. They do use these clips to kind of bunch them up, but the way that they had the cable stranded was not really in a neat package, and I've just got that to where it's up out of the way. They even had the SCSI cable with a twist in it, as you can still see the folds here, to connect it up to the hard drive underneath in the that lower bay, just down here. And I don't know why they didn't have that in the normal position. They've got, I'll be able to rotate the case around eventually and show how the front of it's situated. They've got an assembly that is in front of the regular Model 57 and 77 case that protrudes with the power switch and all that. And but the hard drive would fit right up above there in that bay that it's typically able to do. So here is the CPU down here, even marked with IBM on that gold colored heatsink, and it's a 386 SLC 20 megahertz that's underneath that. It's the same planar that the 386 SX had, but they didn't put a heatsink on the 386 SX. So I'm trying to remember my submodel encoding, but this would be effectively, I think, effectively an 8557X, for whatever character, and then the middle character of 4, signifying the 386 SLC, and then just whatever character for that last digit in the submodel encoding as well. And then the math coprocessor socket is not populated either. It's there, but it's not populated. And spinning this around, kind of get a view. That just looks like 2 megabyte of RAM that's there. I mean, for something running DOS, it's enough, but don't really see many SIMs in there at all. And then the front of the case looks like, and I'm zoomed out all the way. Just move my camera, I guess, back it off a little bit. But it has this protrusion that's out of the front for the power switch and all the LEDs and everything else, just to fit in that longer style case. But normally this is the bay for the hard drive on these models. So it's got the fan, and even this, I mean, I'm suspecting this almost is like a toner to me. Copy machine toner, being black like that. And this did not have in the cover. Normally they put a foam sheet over that to block the dusting inside that you can clean. I mean, it has a pop-down cover. And that power supply, excuse me, the This is the arrangement of that fan. Just a lead off of the, ultimately the 12 volt, and they even keep with the color coding in this instance for that 12 volt side of blue. For some reason, it's a darker blue, but instead of yellow, those power supplies used a blue to signify 12 volts. So that's ultimately a 12 volt fan, and it's got this little assembly. It's got, and that's very, very faint, but it has a date in 91 is what it looks like. And so there's the FRU for you. November of 91. So just about 30 years ago, or a little bit less than 30 years ago for that. And that just comes, it's got ultimately this black wire that goes over to the fan. And of course, the big thing that people are going to be interested in is this multi-serial board. And it's got a separate CPU on it. This looks to be an 8186. You'll have to look up, okay, it is an IBM multi-port. And this system also has a software on there to support that multi-port. And just goes through to where that's ultimately in slot 4. Normally has this this cable that's connected, not even using all the pins of that connector. I would normally expect that to be wired up to have more pins and things like that in there. And I do have longer cables of these for all the number of connectors, and it takes it to a little breakout panel, and also has this connection from the parallel port that comes up. And I'm kind of interested in the functionality of that to look at for. I'm going to go through and I'm going to disconnect it from this side as well. And it looks like it's slotted screwdriver time for, well, I guess these are crosshatch for, I could use the Phillips end for those, but there's that breakout panel, and then it's slotted screws on this side. And I'm going to go through, I'll just separate that. It's ultimately a male to female for the parallel port that does go to that P2. So not to get that confused with any of the other fittings that could go into. I'm sure that was maybe a little bit of a nightmare if they have those, because those would be effectively serial port breakout connections for that. But we're going to see what the electronics. I'm really interested in what these chips are. It'll be under here. And I'm not going to go through, of course, this has the bad power supply in it still. I'm not going to go through and look at swapping power supplies or starting it up on this video, although that will be a later, can easily be a later subject. Okay, so we have this marked CBS PC interface adapter, Microvision Incorporated. It's got the part number, and that's on that label anyway. Okay. And then we get to see, oh, those are resistor networks. So, and this, wow, this, that connector's not, it's kind of even tweaked a little bit in its alignment. And as I say, that one is not even populated. Interesting for all that. But it goes through and breaks it out into those other connectors. And that 74 HT08 AP chips being tied in as well. Even got a little transistor there too, or voltage regulator. And of course I'll have to take some pictures of that. That's a 5-volt voltage regulator. Tantalum caps, something to be concerned about, whether they're going to explode or not. But that's a look of that panel, and to what that does for that multi-port adapter. So, kind of a really interesting system to look over the insides to, and I'm looking forward to getting it running again. For all the black toner on there, the inside looks relatively clean. Otherwise, I'm not sure, because they had a they didn't have a filter on that fan, and that toner just would being on there. But the inside, I mean, there's a little bit of black dust, but this, yeah, this does look like copy machine toner to me. Just that fine powder, and it's you know, there's a thin coating of it around, but at least it's not like somebody, you know, has a whole toner module that sprayed on the inside of that. So turn around so I don't get my microphone cord the wrong way. But that's been a view of the insides of the system after I've got open the lock. It took about 10 minutes for me to go through, and it just happened to be lucky, probably because the pins and everything else, and I tried to go through and see if any of the keys I had around would fit it, and they really didn't. It just was the effect of that it muscled through those pins to get it in the unlocked position, and to where I could open the case. And of course I'm not going to go through and lock it or anything like that, but they would have had to access the case just for the battery, the configuration, the coin cell battery that's in there should be on the riser, and so that would have been something they would have had to access inside the machine at least every few years. But I don't know where that key is now, but really doesn't matter at this point. We've got the case open. So in a future video, I'll be looking at those power supplies. I've got other couple power supplies, and we'll look at the insides of those and getting those fixed, and what the options are for keeping those running, because that's kind of the high failure item of these systems. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.